We have talked a lot about nurturing the brain, how to prevent the stress, but I think we should also know about what stress does to you. What are the implications? Where are we getting diabetes? Where are we getting the hypertension from? How are we getting eating disorder and obesity? How we are getting immunological problems and cancer? Everything filters down to stress, and the stress is causing trauma. The trauma is causing learning disabilities, neurodevelopmental disorders like hyperactive child syndrome, hyperkinetic child syndrome, oppositional defiant disorder, autism and sensory processing disorders, autism spectrum disorder. Not one. Majority of the conditions seem to have correlation with the stress that the human being perceives from the time they are born and thrown into this world to the time they walk into the tomb. Therefore, we need to know how we can prevent stress, and we can do that easily when we know where we are getting impacted with the stress. We already talked about 0 to 3 months, maternal depression, domestic violence, lack of nurture, lack of interaction, lack of face-to-face, person-to-person interaction with reciprocity is causing stress in the newborn. They withdraw, called as anaclytic depression. Then we are talking about between 3 months to 6 months, 6 months to 9 months, establishing trust and bonding and causing separation anxiety and stranger anxiety that should be dealt with to prevent the stress and anxiety causing learning disorder, lack of cognitive associations because the child is stressed out. Then we are talking about 24-month-old being stressed out when there is spanking, yelling, being in timeouts rather than healthy timing. That can also be stressful. Every step of the way, we need to use the nurture, using the senses to control the stress. What does stress do? Whenever there is fear, anxiety and toxic stress, where we do get stressed out, I have to talk at this time about homeostasis, natural homeostasis. When we are afraid of the dark and we are walking and then we see a stick and think it's a snake, then we know by paying attention that anxiety gets under control when we realize we are dealing with a stick, not a snake. When a 3-year-old and 2-year-old see a ketchup on the floor, they may think it is blood, but 4-year-old knows it's not blood. They are less stressed out. When we are involved in a car accident or when we fall, we are afraid, we are stressed out, and comes to normal when we realize there is safety and security. But if you are crossing a street filled with the traffic that is not going to stop, and you need to go to work to reach the other end every single day, by crossing that street and you don't know where in that turning a vehicle is going to come and hit you, you are stressed out day in and out. This is daily stress. If a child is being yelled at, yanked, and is watching abuse day in and out, that is a stress that causes fear, hyperarousal, fear, withdrawal, and then the homeostasis does not come back to normal. An example, if you eat, you have to excrete within the next day or two. If you drink water, 2 cups, you have to let go of that water from the body within the next hour or so. If you breathe in, you have to breathe out carbon dioxide. There is a natural homeostasis built into the body. When that homeostasis is disturbed because of uncontrollable toxic stress and fear, the body and the emotional system or the altered electrophysiological state doesn't come back to normal. And this can be a profound stress when a child sees violence or loses a parent that they are very much attached to cancer. That's a profound stress. They need therapy. They need to come back to normal state, and it just doesn't happen. People do need therapy. What are all the various therapies? What is happening with this brain? There is a cortisol secretion, epinephrine, norepinephrine secretion with every stress, toxic stress, profound stress, rape victims, incest, homicide and suicide that they have seen, witnessed. These are all profound stresses. There is a lot of flood, then the whole house is washed out, they are standing on the street. These are stresses, these are the trauma which we take it for granted. But when this happens in any one of the normal mechanisms, there is a cortisol, epinephrine, norepinephrine. They increase the heart rate, they narrow the blood vessels, they produce gastric mobility and increased acidity. They cause dysfunction of the bowel and the bladder system, either constipation or too many bowel movements, or abdominal pains or stomach cramps. They also suppress the immune system. Then there is this cortisol that works on the natural killer factor and the CD54, 45 to 54 systems that help fight an infection. So there is an increased infection proneness, particularly from the viral infections. It also causes cancer cells not to be suppressed, because there is an autophagy in the body where the cancer cells are killed by your own cells, and if that fails, the cortisol has suppressed the natural killer factor or similar cells, and then there is a cancer proneness. When there is a constant stress, the epinephrine, norepinephrine and cortisol also increase your sugar levels. Repetitious sugar levels cause what we call it as a stress diabetes. When you are stressed out, some people have the habit of eating and overcoming the stress to release the natural endorphins or the natural dopamine, particularly white carbohydrates. These also are responsible for causing the obesity, acanthosis nigricans, and stress-induced diabetes. And at the same time, cortisol also causes muscle weakness. I'm pretty certain all of you have heard about the steroid-treated athletes who have muscle weakness. They have Herculean muscles, but they have weak muscles, and they have myopathy. The stress of epinephrine, norepinephrine and cortisol causes cardiomyopathy and sudden cardiac arrest. We have seen that also. There is a Japanese name, but this is endocardial fibroelastosis caused by chronic stress. Chronic stress scars the brain cells. They are burning out. This is called the natural apoptosis from the stress. And with ADHD, we have done MEG scans, we have done fMRI scans, we have done PET scans. Infants and adults exposed to stress can scar the brain cells. Is this what is happening with the electronic gaming and hip hop and rock and roll music? Every rock star, from Blues Brothers to Elvis Presley, Prince and Michael Jackson, needed drugs, although they energized and electrified everybody. This is from their natural state of cortisol, epinephrine, norepinephrine, that left their body. They had rebound depression, and then they needed to do drugs, and ultimately it is the drugs that killed them. Stress has this much of impact. 48 to 50% of the kids 18 to 34 years of age are growing up with 2 or 3 mental disorders. This need to be overcome with the cognitive behavior modification therapy. This cognitive behavior modification therapy was used, which is called as SAI Educare cognitive behavior modification therapy, particularly by Dr. Meena Chintapalli, that is me, who also runs a non-profit Society for Resistance International, and then the Sai Institute of Educare, which subserves the goals of this non-profit. The health is defined as physical, psychological, intellectual, social, emotional, spiritual wellness. The psychological and physical wellness are so intimately related. If emotional and social wellness is not there, the intellectual wellness is compromised. We are not going to only look at if the body is growing okay, if the head circumference is okay, if the heart and blood pressure, everything is okay, but we also have to look at the emotional wellness, social wellness, psychological wellness to assure intellectual wellness. How is this physical wellness associated with the truth? If we remember once about what I mentioned, that the cognitive brain that sits on the eye sockets is an exclusive property only of the human beings. Human beings are the only ones who can change their reactions to responses. We are the only ones in the whole creation who can share our emotions, share our happiness, serve the society, serve the inanimate objects on earth, assure that the plants are living well, the rivers are healthy, and the oceans are healthy. We are the only ones who can create this one. This is from the truth. This is the physical wellness. The intellectual abilities are so much related to the very fact that we do the right things at the right moment. This is the right action. Not only we help ourselves, not only we take care of ourselves, the self-care, we help other human beings. We help the earth, we help the resources. We are the only ones who can do that. How is the emotional wellness related? We need to find out peace within ourselves. Peace is what determines the human connection. Peace is what determines our relationship with our environment. Peace is a virtue that you develop, which is an internal locus. Let me tell you a story. There was an old woman who was sewing and lost her needle inside her hut where there was a light. Her sight was poor, she couldn't find it there. She comes out to the street and starts looking for that. And then a little boy goes by and said, "Grandma, can I help you find something?" She said, "I was stitching inside and I lost my needle. I am unable to find it there, but I am trying to find this needle in the haystack." He said, "Grandma, you lost it inside the hut. You are going to find it inside the hut." Goes there and does the deed of finding the needle. That's what peace is. It's within us. It's within our own creation. We need to engage ourselves to find that peace within us through certain activities. And then we have to find social wellness. And that social wellness comes from love. Love is not amorous love we are talking about. Love is not just hugs and kisses. Love is respect. Love is acceptance. Love is self-respect. Love is non-violence. Love is finding truth, that we are all the same in the whole creation, that we are all different beings, but there is only one breath we take, and that there is only one oxygen that sustains us. That's the tolerance, interpersonal tolerance, and we can talk obligingly to each other, although we don't agree with each other. This is the love we are talking about. This is self-respect, respect for the nature, respect for the nation, respect for the environment. If we can do this by controlling our desires, protecting our resources, using time efficiently, we have attained the emotional wellness and psychological wellness. This psychological wellness comes only from this love and love for the whole creation. And then spiritual wellness. Everybody thinks spiritual wellness is religion. Religion meaning is religion, reconnecting. And this is connecting within the highest energy that is within every one of us, that makes us see, that makes us talk, that makes us think, that makes us discriminate. And this is self-confidence. If you know yourself, you have known the world. If somebody tries to taunt me, I do not want to get angry because I know what I am. That is self-confidence. Self-confidence is a spiritual asset. So what did I say? I said health is as defined by the World Health Organization once they have known about the neuroscience in 1997. Health is physical, intellectual, psychological, social emotional, spiritual wellness. Can we meet this definition, this goal, by taking care of every newborn to their utmost wellness? And this is by controlling the stress. How can I control the stress? Can I think positive about myself? How about always the simplest thing? I can look at one of the quotes that I've developed for the Sai Institute of Educare. Peace is a shoreless ocean. It is the light, it illumines the world. What did the world lose today? School violence, domestic violence, community violence, aggression, anger, and victimization of this trauma from anger and neglect. Because once we put that peace back within us as a health asset, we are going to get the asset of world peace. Virtue is the sign of the educated person. This is what makes education worthwhile, such as Sai Baba. Love all, serve all. You see this on t-shirts. Tigret was running Hard Rock Cafe. He took all Baba's quotes to give, why fear when I'm near. So these are all the universal consciousness that is always around us. Forget about God. If you believe in yourself, you're believing in God. That self-confidence we should assure the children, but with the love, discipline, structure, consistency. If we think positive, we are going to become positive. JFK said, do not ask the society what it has given to you. Ask yourself what you have given back to the nation. And this is every individual. What can we give back? Unless you are healthy physically, you're physically fit, you cannot do that. But take positive quotes from Einstein to everybody. I have a lot of quotes that I have given in my book, and if you can go back and research them, and there are positive quotes at www.saicdp.org, and that is a Sai character development program. I developed a positive thoughts calendar for each asset I talked about. Truth, that we are the only ones in the whole creation that can make a difference, reaction to response. And we are the only ones who have been entrusted with the whole creation. We are the only ones who can do right things for ourselves with the social, ethical, personal skills. We are the only ones in the whole creation that can multiply this intellect, and this intellect and knowledge sharing can never change, and this is through our right actions, and it will multiply. We are the only ones we can assure the asset of health with the peace and psychological wellness. That is together. We are the only ones we can give emotional wellness through love and peace. And we are the only ones we can give the spiritual wellness through non-violence. And this non-violence is a final asset of being a holistic individual. Positive thoughts, self-care, self-health. We have to eat right. We talked about nutrition, and the role of the parent is to introduce healthy foods from the beginning that have luteins, antioxidants, trace minerals, and this is through fruits and vegetables, organic vegetables in cooking, eating healthy grain like polycomplex carbohydrates, quinoa, millets, rather than white carbohydrates. We can balance our nourishment from birth rather than eating processed foods. And this is called self-care. And how about physical exercise and activities, and what is their role? Physical activities have a major role. If you resort to swimming, all muscles are moving. Martial arts, it teaches discipline and muscle movement. Soccer, sports, games, that is very important. What is the role of the music? Classical music does give emotions. I mentioned that in one of my series of lectures. It gives positive emotion. You can listen to healthy music, happy music. You can listen to sad music. You can listen to soothing music that calms you down. You can listen to electrifying music, rock and roll and jazz, and then what is the rebound depression? You have to deal with that through yoga and other practices. Music has to be soothing, music has to be nurturing love, calmness, peace, internal peace, and exhibit it out. And learning a musical instrument like piano and violin, what do? They teach you the mathematical reasoning, because when somebody is playing piano, there is a spatial reasoning with the fine motor coordination and sensory motor cortex. So learning a musical instrument as well as listening to music, it does wonders to the body and helps listening skills, helps expression also, because when you hear things, you connect to the frontal lobe. We talked about that. And then the meditation and mindfulness. The mindfulness is easy breathing. Breathing in through the nose, holding the breath for 6 seconds, exhaling through the nose. There are certain centers in the nose that stimulate oxytocin. What does oxytocin do? Oxytocin releases cortisol, or negative feedback suppression of cortisol, epinephrine, norepinephrine. This oxytocin in general relaxes all the body parts also. And then when the internal peace comes along, oxytocin also enhances bonding within the self with the other persons around. The same thing happens with the touch therapy. So including for the grown-ups, from 18 months to grown-ups, mindfulness with the regulated nasal breathing, along with the multisensory integration of music therapy, which is calming down music, nature sounds, flute, violin, sitar, or waterfalls. Any one of these will enhance internal peace. And what does it do with the nasal breathing? When you're doing prolonged breathing, holding, exhaling, you are getting rid of your toxins from the pulmonary system or the lung system, but you are also increasing the nascent oxygen. This nascent oxygen increases oxygen flow to the brain. It opens up the blood vessels. And so your flow to the brain is better. When this flow to the brain is better, when you are calming down, this left frontal lobe makes connections with the inner peace. And this is what was documented by SPECT studies by Dr. Andrew Newberg when he did the Buddhist studies, and he opened up. The right brain connects with the world. When you temporarily suppress the right brain connections, which is tempos, rhythms, mathematical processing and all those, and you relax yourself, the left side of the brain is for memory, reasoning, abstract thinking, communication skills, and this is very important part of the brain. And perception. It opens up the temporal lobe also, the Wernicke's area, which receives all your speech, and the Broca's area also is opened up with the music as well as regulated breathing exercise. Because there is a negative feedback suppression of the cortisol and epinephrine, the oxytocin is doing its deed in enhancing the immune system. When you enhance the immune system, you are able to fight your infections, you are able to control the chemicals that cause asthma, blood pressure, heart problems, and so on. And also this relaxation makes you think better. This nasal breathing makes you think better. You see the benefits of physical activities like Hatha Yoga. When all muscles are working, you are causing the release of natural endorphins, lactates and pyruvates that also relaxes the muscles and opens up the blood vessels, whereas just simple rethinking choices with the breathing and music has the same assets. So, when you combine the physical activities with the regulated yoga as documented by Shanmukha in his Yoga Chromium, and many revered masters like Sri Sri Ravi Shankar and others, you will benefit from all those. Yoga is not limited to India. Yoga is not limited to our culture. But for people who want to know further about regulated breathing exercise, doing certain Sanskrit hymns like Om Bhur Bhuvasvaha Tat Saviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yona Prachodayat. This is called Gayatri. This Gayatri with soft music behind and with regulated breathing exercise that can be taught by a guru or yoga masters. All India Institute of Medical Sciences has done research on that, and I have taught this one to many Westerners as well as the Eastern population who came with anger management issues and behavior disorders. What it does is it enhances the activity through fMRI studies, SPECT studies and MEG studies, the left frontal cortex. The role of the left frontal cortex is the executive functions of memory, recall, critical thinking, abstract reasoning, and believe it or not, Newton found his theories of relativity just through meditation or mindfulness by sitting under the apple tree. Thank you for listening to me.